Are we audio? Are we on?
Now we are.
Okay. Good morning and welcome. A little bit later than typical, but we're gonna have this is Holy Week, and we're gonna talk about Holy Week. So welcome to Crosstalk Podcast. I'm David Wofford, the pastor here at Edenton First United Methodist Church, and I'm here with my trusty friends Joe and Brian. Joe DeLoach and Brian Beveridge. We are in the Holy Week. I've heard Holy Moly Week. It's a wonderful time for us to remember the walk that Christ offered from the beginning of Palm Sunday all the way to Thursday, to Maundy Thursday at the Passover feast, and from there he was arrested at the Garden at Gethsemane, and he spent one night in Jerusalem, and was crucified on Golgotha on Friday at noon, and then he gave his spirit up around 3:00, gave his spirit up to God, the Father, and was buried by Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus, we think, and Saturday was a quiet day, and then Mary Magdalene and Mary, just a couple of Marys, and 2 or 3 Marys, we're not sure how many, but we know Mary Magdalene witnessed Jesus' absence from the tomb. So he was resurrected. So, but we walk this journey every year, and we just want to talk about Holy Week. So what are your thoughts on Holy Week, on Holy Week?
It's a long week, but there's a lot of. To me, it's a week of hope, especially when you look at what the resurrection actually stands for and means. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a lot of hope of renewed life and eternal life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's a time of renewal, rebirth, regeneration. To me, usually because it goes along with spring, having grown up in the country and tied to seasons and outside and everything, it's a time of a kind of regrouping and think, all right, have another year now to see if I can get it all right. So, to me, Holy Week is very special, especially Good Friday and then Easter Sunday.
The engineer in me gets kind of caught up in the details because there's so many details. In the church, there's so much happening. I was talking to a non-denominational pastor in the community, and he said, well, what do y'all do that's so big about Holy Week? And I said, well, we have our Palm Sunday service, and then I'll be preaching at the Baptist Church on Wednesday for lunch, and then Thursday we'll have a Maundy Thursday service and a fish fry that leads up to a Maundy Thursday service, and then we'll have a luncheon on Friday, and then we'll have an ecumenical church service, cross-racial church service that we're having at 6:00 on Friday night, and then we'll come in and have a sunrise service, 2 sunrise services, one in front of the church for the youth, and one at the steps of the plaza, and then we'll have 8:45 and 11:00 service. Just your typical week.
Crazy
week.
week.
And he said, "Well, my goodness," he said, We'll have an Easter egg hunt. Oh, I forgot the Easter egg hunt at Sunday school hour. I said, we'll have an Easter egg hunt and we'll have church, and that's it. And I thought, oh my goodness, we obviously do it a little differently around here. But I know some of that's tradition, but also just remembering Holy Week.
We were discussing this at lunch Sunday, and I said, I wonder what people that aren't practicing Christians, what does Easter mean to them? And unanimously it was, it's the Easter bunny,
It's bunny and eggs.
Bunny and eggs. And I'm thinking, well, then again, what have we done to Christmas?
Yeah.
And
what have we done to all our holidays?
See, we fought this with my in-laws because they were strict, I call them Puritans. You didn't have any Santa Claus. Well, that's not right.
Right.
You didn't have any Easter bunny. That's pagan. Oh, we had this knockdown drag out about he's paganistic, and next thing you're gonna be with druids and running around the Stonehenge. I'm thinking, oh please.
Well, we had the Tooth Fairy show up at our house last night. So one of the molars of my oldest daughter went missing. So bottom line is, where do you draw a line?
How much you give for the molar?
4 quarters.
You cheap rascal!
Hey, you're gonna have to talk to Mama, okay?
Lord, we used to give $10.
Well, I have to admit that I would be a lot more generous, but I'm gonna lean on my wife on this one. This is a decision, and it seems to work. Okay, because my daughter, my oldest daughter, hasn't figured out like the value of a dollar, which actually is probably why she doesn't need to have more money. But yeah, I guess the tooth fairy is a little cheaper.
I can remember we used to get dimes and quarters.
Yeah, I mean, I would get it like a dollar bill when I was a kid. So, but I understand that was what 30 years ago.
So is the tooth fairy
Inflation.
supposed to be paganistic too?
I would think that any fairy would be a paganistic sort of thought.
That's
Well, the
real.
biggest thing with all the holidays, everything's really got, well, not everything, but most of the holidays have a Christian base to them.
That's true.
If you look at Halloween, it's All Saints Day.
You know, I was grown before I realized that.
Well, but Christmas comes around the winter solstice,
Right.
which is a pagan idea.
That's right.
But
pagan holiday.
if you look at the true, what we celebrate Christmas as, the birth of Christ,
Yeah,
the reason you give presents is you give presents at birthdays.
sure.
So that's where the Christmas present came from.
Yeah,
The church used to use all these symbols to teach Christianity. Well, the pagans, which already had these holidays of their own, kind of took all these other symbols that we try to teach them Jesus with and combined it into one.
sure.
And that's where, like, the Christmas presents where the three wise men bring gifts. Then they're like, well, shouldn't everybody get gifts?
I don't know what to say except that you can't get the world out of all the holidays, and at the same time, like, I mean, as an Orthodox person, like, it's good for us to remember, I guess, that with Holy Week that it happened on Passover. So the Passover feast was the culmination of all that had happened to the Israelites in Egypt. Right? Plague was the plague of killing all the it was the Pharaoh saying kill all the oldest sons, and then the plague of the oldest sons being killed by, I guess, death, and the blood of the lamb was placed on the thresholds at the command of God to Moses, and they passed over. Death passed over their oldest sons, and so the Passover is the salvation of those oldest sons, of the primogenitor of the.
And you know, I don't think we need to keep the world out of Holy Week or Christmas or anything, because Christ did not want us to be removed from the world. He wanted us to be in the world.
Sure.
So what we try to do is, yes, we celebrate, but we try to remember why we're celebrating. And
But there is one problem with that. And it goes back to the whole thing with Christianity in school. Because in prayer, like the prayer in school thing, it goes back to our beliefs being shattered and pushed down by all these other denominations. If we get in the world, they think, okay, well, they're conforming to us. We have to still have our faith and everything out there in the
definitely.
front. And a lot of times Christians, they don't do that. They Americanize it and they use
Sure, we
pagan
all dress up in
traditions.
pastel colors and look like Easter eggs and all that, and try
Right.
do the Easter egg hunt. And I mean, Saturday I'll be at my parents' house and we'll be doing an Easter egg hunt. You know, the little kids love the Easter egg hunt. Is that the worst thing in the world? I don't think so.
No, but do you teach your kids the true meaning of Easter?
You better believe I do.
no,
How
we
many
do.
parents do not teach their kids the true meaning of Christmas?
Wait a minute, how many
Easter?
parents don't know the
That's the
true
other
meaning?
thing. Yeah.
Right.
And so
You can't teach something you don't know.
And that said, that, you know, this is Holy Week is a moment when we, the church, sort of are on display. Like, and maybe that's what we're supposed to do. Obviously, people show up for Easter. I mean, Easter service is the big service.
What are the Creasters?
Yeah, the
Yeah, Christmas Easters.
The Creasters.
Oh, yeah.
And I have no problem with Creasters because I was a Creaster one time. I was for 8 years or so. I was a Creaster.
And so I think you need to put Mother's Day in there too.
Sure.
I don't know how you would work that into the Creaster name.
I didn't always go to church on Mother's Day. I showed up at the dinner table on Mother's Day, though. You better believe that.
I mean, the biggest thing with like Holy Week though is how many people actually understand why we do Maundy, Thursday. It's like I ask you the question, why, and I'm actually going to become a local pastor, and I ask the question to you, why is Good Friday called Good Friday?
Yeah.
I've asked that
Because
repeatedly.
it's the day he dies.
Well, but it has to do with the English translation of God Friday or Holy Friday, Gotha Friday in German. It's a Germanic translation to good from German to English.
Years ago, the first time we ever had, to my knowledge, we had Good Friday service here. Whoever the minister was removed everything off the altar.
Yeah,
Nothing.
They
You're
strip
supposed to.
it.
And it was
Strip it.
stripped it, and it was all black everywhere.
It's the one time that strippers come into the church.
And it was,
That's a bad joke.
I know. We just kind of jumped right over that.
Anyway.
And he dimmed the lights. I think it was in the evening.
Yeah.
It was a very moving,
Sure.
and no talking.
Yeah.
And of course, that lasted till you got to the door. But I mean, you can't tell Southerners to shut up. I've never seen that happen.
It's like telling them to get in the car fast.
And see, that's what concerns me about not only our church, but churches today. I think we've lost a generation of 20 to 30 to 40-year-olds that are having children. These parents can't teach their children because they don't know what to teach them.
So, good
Why
news.
aren't they in charge?
Well, the good news is we haven't lost them. They just haven't gotten there yet. I think about myself.
Yeah, well-
I really wasn't a tithing, kneeling, praying Christian that went to church until I was probably 24. So from 18 to 24, I was nowhere. I was a priester.
You were trying to find yourself.
But I think there's a lot of people like that in that age group.
So now maybe it's gone from 18 to much later. But,
Probably.
Well, see, a lot of your 30s to your, like, starting in your 30s and dropping down, you have a lot of people what they call none and doners.
Sure.
It's where they see the church fighting within itself. They see
That's right.
all the turmoil in the church. They don't see
They see inauthenticity in the church.
right, and they don't see God in the church. They see a bunch of liturgy that you just repeat every Sunday with no
That's
true
right.
meaning.
That's right. That's right. It's got to pierce the heart.
what is it?
You're right.
Religion is not working.
No, it never has really worked, if we're honest.
At Sunday school, we were in John, I think it was 13. Anyway, about the vine. I may have the wrong chapter, but I used a web. By the way, it worked. The
Okay.
laptop worked Sunday morning. I had went online and researched this thing, and it said religion is man's way of covering up his sin.
That's good.
We talked about that.
Right.
I had never thought about that,
Well, see, that's
and that's kind of interesting,
one of the things our mentor group had us do was they had us go out and find out why people aren't in church. When I was going through
Yeah.
the mentorship for local licensed pastor, so I went out and I actually surveyed like 40 people, and the biggest thing they said was the God's not in church anymore because it's all just repetitive. You do the same thing every Sunday, and it's just there's no meaning behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And there also we don't get anything we can take home for the week and sink our teeth into and actually be able to use in our daily lives.
But Brian, the repetition of the affirmation of faith, the Lord's Prayer, and even communion, to me, as an older person, is very significant. And I take that with me. But now that's just me.
Well, see, it is, but if you, a lot of times, how many times do we say stuff because it's an order, and we say the same order every Sunday, not thinking about what we're saying? Me working sound, I look at slides,
Yeah.
and I change slides, and I'll be sitting there reading stuff, just reading it, not thinking about it, and I don't retain anything or catch anything because it's the same like liturgy. Yeah, I just make sure that I'm not missing the slide.
One of the things that really kind of pierces that is testimony, but you'll find that testimonies make a lot of people uncomfortable.
Makes me uncomfortable.
So testimonies are a very piercing, a way to sort of shatter sort of the rhythm of church, because you can't stop. That's the thing about Christianity, is it's really a personal story, because you're right, all the sort of dressings of church, it's a way to honor God, it's a way to offer dignity and beauty to what we think and how we think, but none of that really matters unless you hear a personal testimony, or you're able to connect what you hear to your own life. And so I find the biggest challenge, and probably the most important thing I do, aside from just making sure the operations of this church are honest and transparent, which I think is one of the biggest jobs I think of a pastor in the church, just to make sure everything's transparent, because a lot of people think that we're a bunch of hypocrites.
Hypocritic,
Yeah.
But the hardest thing is to take a sermon and to help people in that congregation hear me, not hear what I want them to hear or what I think they should hear, but what I really am saying.
2 weeks ago, you preached on the love of money,
Yeah, the root of evil.
And in Sunday school class, we talked about that this past Sunday because I wasn't there the Sunday before. Anyway, and I had a member of my class says, I told the preacher it's not the love of money, it's the love of the lack of money.
Well,
And I thought, that's a neat way of putting that.
yeah.
You know, or
guess.
the love of too much money.
Well, I don't know if it's a lack if you've got billions of dollars and you
The
still
amount.
and you make it the most. You would kill somebody to keep it.
Yeah.
I
I mean, and here we are at income tax time.
sure.
Yeah.
We have a comment. Some of those comments are excuses not to come. You have to come with an open mind and open heart for anything to touch and penetrate your mind and heart, which I agree with. But at the same time, if they don't understand why we say all that stuff, it's not going to ever penetrate, even if you have an open mind.
Well, there's a million reasons why people don't come. I'll give you some that I remember from my own childhood. Is that my father went into business with someone in the congregation, and it failed. This is like 1989. If you remember George W. Herbert Walker Bush, there was a depression or a slowdown. Anyway, my dad and his partner, both in the same church, their business failed. They were doing grading and hauling. And it was going gangbusters until it didn't. And when it didn't, my dad was left holding the bag because the other guy filed bankruptcy. So my family stopped going to church for like a year because my mom and dad could not bear to stand in the same church and watch their holy roller friend who had basically walked away and reneged on his end of the bargain. I mean, they had like
I understand that.
They had like 300. This is 1989. $300,000 debt my dad had, and it was all on the farm. And so my dad had to take a job with Kroger, a second job. He went back to the state of Georgia and became an engineer again. Went back, but then he had to go to Kroger and work in the dairy section in Roswell's Kroger. And I'll never forget it because it was like, I was about 12 years old. But the point is, that pushed my dad away. So little things like that happen within the church hurts within the church.
Conflicts with personalities.
Sins like that. My dad saw that and perceived that as a sinful thing that he did to walk away from their responsibilities.
Well, at one point here, one reason I left the church was a conflict with the minister.
Sure.
And looking back on it, I pray about that a lot and ask forgiveness for it because I was just stupid. I put my feelings on my shoulder and walked out. And I should have gone and talked to the man.
Right. So those were the issues. Those issues happen in our churches. Like people get crossed, people's business gets crossed, people's hurts feelings. Decisions get made.
Well, I'll tell you, when I was younger, one of the reasons I walked away in my teens was, and this was a small town Baptist church. And I've seen it in other churches too, including this one every once in a blue moon, where the older generations, and not all of them, some of them actually welcome the younger generations in, like, we need you,
Right.
But there's some of the older generations that are like, well, we've done this for 500 years this way. Y'all need to go over here to your little corner.
Right.
Get out of my way.
And
Well-
I've actually been told at some churches, you don't need to do anything. We have it.
Right. Well, when I was 18, I walked away from the church because I was called to ministry and didn't want to do it. I wanted to be in the world, shall we say? I joined a fraternity. I went to Georgia Tech. Late nights on Saturday nights, I would go to church every once in a blue moon with some of my fraternity brothers who went to church. They were Baptist, and every time we'd go, they would talk about the end times. And I thought, well, there's a lot. I can't embrace the end times. I'm 19,
Right.
20 years old, so there was a lot of the young folks were not. There was nothing for me to sort of latch onto. There was no service opportunity for me to serve in. If I'd been in a small group, and I actually was in a small group, but it wasn't an official small group in a church, but a couple of my fraternity brothers and I would have a weekly Bible study on Thursday nights. That's where I connected. So we've got a generation of folks that aren't connecting in, or maybe two generations now. But I would say that they're going to be more. They're just socially, they're going to be more progressive. They're going to be less not necessarily engaged with God, less hungry for God. But somehow we have to help them without losing who we are. Because we know what the Orthodox sort of, this is the way the church believes. Right. We've got to somehow help them, integrate them in, and not burn them for who they are, for the late nights that they may have offered, or the marijuana they may have smoked once in a while, or the broken relationship. You know what I'm trying to say?
Oh, yeah.
I'm not condoning those things, but at the same time, they feel rejected a lot of times because of that.
What did Christ say? Judge,
Sure.
judge not.
Let
Sure.
you be judged.
So there's not a. I'm not saying we have to like compromise our values as Christian as believers in Christ, but as a community, we somehow have to help them find a way, even if it's once a year, even if it's just Easter Sunday.
Even if they are just Christers.
Yeah.
Well, see, we actually had a youth group one time that I was part of. That, and I mean, this was back in the time of Super Wow, when Super Wow was like big. We came back from Super Wow, and you know their music's kind of loud and jacked up at Super Wow. I mean, it's to invite you in, it's to draw you in.
Sure.
Well, we were at church, and one of us, we actually had our CD player playing in the car, in the parking lot, because we always met in the parking lot and we'd chit chat. We went in the youth group. They kicked us out for being too loud. They told us if we were going to be like that, not to come back to their church.
So what would we do if we had that situation? You know, I mean, it happens. If someone's living in a lifestyle or doing things that we sort of say, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
we're probably going to try to tie into something that we can connect with. Maybe their connection. Maybe we know where they live. We know their neighbors.
Well, so that's the big thing. We got to bridge gaps. There's gaps in the generations, and that's one thing with my decom that they asked me. You know, why do you want small churches? Because I told them I prefer small churches, and I was like, you get to bridge that generation gap between the older and the younger generations, and you get to bring them together as one. Mm-hmm. Because if they don't work together, we can't have a functioning church.
Right.
But what concerns me in a lot of the smaller churches, it's the older generation and no younger generation.
Right.
So how do we make and everyone tries to figure, every Christian worth his or her salt is trying to figure this out. How do you connect with those that aren't able to step in? And I think the answer is small groups. It's creating a service, moving from small groups to a larger group that maybe with some relevant music, or finding a place where they can connect in. Maybe it's a Saturday night instead of a Sunday morning, or a Friday night instead of a Sunday morning.
Well, I'm going to make one suggestion, and this is something me and you talked about before. Instead of you can do everything we do. Move it around a little bit, change it up, switch it. That way you throw that monkey wrench in, it makes their mind switch and say, oh, it's not in that order anymore.
Yeah.
So they actually look at what they're reading instead of, oh, let's just repeat the same repetitive order.
Yeah.
The other thing is,
you got to have logic for that, though. You got to tell people why you're doing it, and you got to tell them before you do it.
well, it's to make them think.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, people don't like change
yeah.
unless they're a baby with wet diaper.
But the other thing is we have to bring Jesus.
Yeah. That's right.
Jesus is the key for what we do.
That's right.
If we don't have 100% Jesus in our messages, yes, we give them a piece of ourselves. We tell them why. You know, like you were talking about testimony earlier. Testimony to me is, and I know Joe doesn't like testimony. I'm sorry.
See, not everybody likes it.
But
not everybody likes it.
see, to me, testimony gives you a piece of. They give a piece to you, to them, and it shows the grace of God.
You start testifying, you got my attention. Even if I don't know you, and I just want to hear the story. I am captivated by stories that people about themselves.
Oh, yeah.
See, that's what's happened in my Sunday school. There are many testimonies. It's like, well, this happened to me, and let me explain to you what this, blah, blah. And that's what ties you in. Mm-hmm. And see, I think that's our small group.
Yes.
And I'm going to brag on my Sunday school class.
You should.
We've gone from 2 to 24.
Y'all ain't quite so small anymore.
We average 11
you're
to
a
15.
church.
Yeah, no, we're not. 11 to 15. I mean, it's pretty cool. And
Seriously, though.
there's a feeling there.
Sure. The thing about Eatonton First, the thing that is the backbone of this church is it has I won't say, well, maybe to some degree superior Sunday school classes. Now they compete when new visitors.
Oh,
come
yeah,
in, but like you've got 5 adult. Now the adults are rocking and rolling. You've got 5 adult robust Sunday school classes in this church. Do we have? But we are not connecting with children, youth, and parents. Now we are hitting the retirement that 50 to retiree.
Yeah, you're right there.
Dynamic, demographic, but we are not hitting the under 50s, and so this when it comes to Holy Week, here we are. We're really at this is kind of the one place where a Christian and a church should be able to sort of this reveal this is who we are, but we also have a chance to really, like you're saying, Brian, to really sort of open the door in a different way. We don't have to change who we are and what we believe, but we have to open the door in a way that allows people to at least hook into us somehow.
Right. And so that's where the open heart, open minds, open doors thing comes in with the Methodist Church.
Yeah.
That used to be like the little slogan that was on everything. Open doors. Well, it was open minds, open hearts, open doors.
Right.
And the other thing is
By open Bibles. I think
Right.
that's a good idea too.
Well, I mean, you get them in the doors, you have the Bible there.
Yeah, I know. I'm just being
But-
snarky.
But with the whole thing, are they actually welcome at the table? Is the other thing.
Yeah.
Do they have a place at the table? Because here we don't actually have a class set up for them at all.
It's hard. It's not been. I would say in the 3 years I've been here, the hard thing has been the 5 Sunday schools are absolutely functioning and doing their thing, but to create new avenues, new pathways has been very difficult.
And so that's where the whole
COVID given in the middle of it.
Well,
Oh yeah.
I mean,
that was one of the biggest things that hit hard was COVID, but we were kind of struggling before that.
right.
We had a few that were trying, but they really didn't have a place that they fit in and jived.
Well, I think that as a pastor who's been here 3 years, I think that I'm going to cut some slack on the congregation, because I think it takes at least 3, maybe 4 years for a pastor to earn his or her trust. You got to earn it. You can't
Right.
just show up and have implicit trust.
That's right. Because
You
people,
got to earn your trust. And so I think I'm just now getting to a place where people, and it may take them a couple more years before they trust me to say, could we consider small groups? Could we consider a third service maybe on a Friday night or a Sunday night, or I don't know.
But here's another thing, though. We have a lay leader. The lay leader is supposed to actually be like helping the lay people figure out things that would make
Sure.
the church grow.
Sure. Well, I think
And
it's,
our laity, as in the lay people of the church.
right. I think the laity are beginning to trust. Given coming out of COVID, I think that the laity are coming into they're beginning to trust, and me as the pastor.
Right.
I think that's you've had turnover. You had 3 pastors in a 3-year moment. Think about that.
Oh, yeah.
You went from Dave Henson to Jessica Terrell to David Wofford in a 3-year moment. So
try looking at youth ministers
yeah.
like
And
dominoes.
children's pastors,
Yeah.
and so children's directors. So I think I do think we need to open the doors, and this is Easter, and
It's a time to
Or
open
Holy
doors
Week.
and invite people to the table.
yeah, Holy Week's here. It's a time for us but it's also a time for us to remember who we are, and remember what we've done well. And I think when we come to the cross on Good Friday, at Good Friday noon service, there'll be a basket, and everybody will have a chance to offer how they've done, what they've done poorly, how they've sinned, how have they fallen short of the glory of God, and I'm going to ask the congregation to write down how the congregation, how the community has fallen short, how the congregation has fallen short, and how they as individuals have fallen short. Put them in a piece of paper, wrap it up, roll it up anonymously, and drop it in the basket at the feet of the cross, and let it die with Jesus, because we ultimately need to repent of those things and turn towards, and that's what Holy Week can be, is a moment of self-introspection, communal introspection,
Rebirth.
and rebirth and resurrection.
Got a comment. Sunday night Vesper service that includes the youth, small and only 30 minutes with contemporary music.
All right,
That was a comment from.
I think it's a great comment.
Look, and see, that's coming from one of the lay
See,
people
I
of the
like
church.
the Vespers.
Yeah,
It's not. No offense. Not a long sermon. You cut out a lot of the formality of the traditional. What for me traditional 11 o'clock. Well, it used to now it's 8:45 service.
so as a shepherd, or as a cattleman, or as a person who raises or tends to a group of animals, you've got to think about, like the farmer thinks about what do they like, right? You got to feed them what they like, and they've got to be hungry, or else they're never going to come into the barn, right? So as a church, if you think about us as shepherds, like we've got to in some ways we've got to feed them good food, which I try to. I mean, we all try to. Good food would look like the Word of God, but also they've got to be hungry. So if people aren't coming in, it's not just we've got to offer food, but we've got work to do on that. But they've also got to be hungry.
And see, me and you talked about doing a small group to start out contemporary, because we talked about how to.
Sure.
That confirms what we've been praying about and talking about.
Yep.
That it's God's timing now to get started.
Yeah. Yeah.
At our,
pray into that.
at our retreat that we went to at Glisson a couple of weeks ago, the evening service was Vespers. No sermon. Well, they had a speaker.
It's like a little homily thing.
Yeah, but it was a lot of time, quiet time. It was usually very dim, dark. It was at night. And it gave the kids time to think, and to me, that's what Vespers means. It's not so much what you're telling me. Maybe you'll tell me something and then you give me time to kind of process that. But it's in our life today, so many people don't have quiet time. It's something we fail to realize. All this solitude that our ancestors used to have doesn't exist anymore, especially you live in. So I think Vespers usually is a way to close the day out. It's I think that would be great. 30 minutes.
See, I want to go. I want to have a guitar, and I want to bring noise. But you're saying be quiet.
Well, actually, the music. What he's saying is, you do the music,
but it gives
but you still give. You know how we do like the altar call.
Yeah, that's it.
It's almost like an altar call.
It is an altar call.
But you just play like soft. You can play soft music in the background during that, just like little flowy.
I just would think that if we're successful with Holy Week, and if we look at that, I would love to see the energy that I experienced at that retreat flowing out of this church.
Well,
I just think it would be fantastic. It would. And for us to survive, we've got to do that.
Yeah. See, we live less than we live 20 minutes from a college town. I drive 30 minutes over here to go to church before I even started working here.
Yeah, the distance is the difference, as they say.
But that if you have something to draw them, how many people do we have that live almost in Milledgeville? They come here.
Gosh, go out on the lake. You can live in
Yeah.
Putnam Canyon, still be
That's right.
30 minutes
I
from
mean,
church.
we have people that drive a good distance to come
That's
to church because they want Jesus.
Well, if we find someone or someone emerges in the congregation that can lead musically, there's nothing holding us back. There's nothing. You got a pastor, you got laity that want to do it. I mean, there's nothing to hold us back.
Well, I have a lady that has volunteered.
Okay. See?
I'm not going to say who it is.
Eureka. Yeah, don't put it on the internet. We don't need that on the internet. Okay, we've 10:30 has arrived. We have enjoyed this as we always do. I hope you have a holy week, a holy moly week. And be aware that we have we'll have 5 o'clock supper at Fish Fry on Thursday. We're not going to do Wednesday night supper. We're going to do Thursday night supper, and we'll have 6 o'clock. Is that right? Did I get that right? 6 o'clock.
Yes.
6 o'clock Holy Thursday service, and it'll be a communion service, and then we'll have a noontime Good Friday service, and we'll have a 6 o'clock evening ecumenical Good Friday service with Deck Jackson, who's leading. He'll be leading that service, and then we'll see you at sunrise at 7 o'clock in front of the Great Hall for the youth and young adults, and we'll have a ecumenical sunrise service at the steps on the plaza with the Baptist Church, Presbyterian Church, and the Episcopal Church.
In a regular church.
8:45 church, Easter egg hunt at 10 o'clock for all the kids on the lawn, and then 11 o'clock worship service. So if you are thinking, well, I don't know if I can do it on this time, we got something for you. So we hope you'll have a wonderful Holy Week, and we'll see you throughout the week, but we hope to definitely see you on Sunday morning. God bless you, and have a happy Holy Week.